my little presentation will go a bit deeper into this issue of the gender dimension in the just energy transition. Let me briefly introduce the organization I'm speaking for here now. It is the Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition. This is an NGO registered in Austria, but it's an international NGO with membership from all around the world. And it has the aim of advancing the global energy transition by empowering women in energy through various means: networking, interdisciplinary networking, advocacy, training, coaching, and mentoring. And it also seeks to address gender imbalances in the current energy sector and to promote gender-sensitive action around the energy transition in all parts of the world. So we are doing really two things. One, working with women that are already active in sustainable energy and helping them to advance and to be as self-confident as they can be and as they deserve to be, and to be recognized as they deserve to be. But then we are also trying to work to slowly change the sector itself and make it more inclusive of women and men, but inclusive in general and diverse in general as well. So we do this by promoting networking, by doing advocacy, by providing specific mentoring services. We have built up quite a number of mentoring programs with international organizations active in this area and with countries, in particular Germany, and we have created the Women in Energy Expert platform, which is kind of a specialized LinkedIn for women active in sustainable energy, where women can register themselves, register their profile, and we have already way over 1,000 women registered there who bring great expertise to the field. This is also a very good argument for us when the point is made that, oh my, we would like to have women included in this conference, or we would like to have women in this job, but there are simply no good qualified women. We can now say, oh yes, there are, and many of them, and highly qualified. So when we look at the energy transition, what we found is that there is no uniform understanding of what it actually means to promote the energy transition, but there seems to be some kind of convergence around the idea that clearly it is multidimensional, it is complex, it is non-linear, it's non-deterministic and highly uncertain, and it is much more than just switching from one fuel to another, switching away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, increasing energy efficiency. Of course, that's part and parcel of the energy transition, but really the energy transition is much more, because it will need to change consumption, distribution, and investment patterns. It will require coalitions and of actors and new capabilities of actors. It will need new socio-technical regimes of policy, regulation, mindsets, new mindsets, new beliefs, new social practices. So it's a very deep transformation of society that we are looking at, and it will require a lot of behavioral change, innovation, and integration across sectors, which means that we need to do whatever we can to get diverse backgrounds, capabilities, perspectives involved, and make sure that the energy transition can draw on a large and diverse talent pool. This is another definition that we like, or another attempt to describe the energy transition as a just energy transition. Energy transitions are about people and the ones who make the decisions and the ones affected by those decisions. And a just transition approach ensures that the affected people are considered by those making decisions. So it's a lot also about participation and by having processes that are inclusive and participatory. Now, it was already said that the current state of women in the energy transitions is not so great. Women in sustainable energy, women in energy in general are not so well represented. You know, the old energy sector, the fossil fuel energy sector, was very male dominated and continues to be very male dominated. But that is also quite true for the new energy sector, sustainable energy, where the proportion of women continues to be quite low. There are no real consolidated statistics, so the figures that we have are all approximations, and there is quite a variety on the figures depending on what source you look, how you define jobs in sustainable energy, for example, and etc. So we are on safe ground, though, when we say that women are not equally represented in sustainable energy, and that there is the potential to increase the participation of women significantly. Especially since we are expecting the sustainable energy sector to grow significantly in the next years and decades. On this slide, you know, I'm quoting the number of 11 million jobs in the renewable energy sector as of 2018 by IRENA statistics, and there is a projection that jobs in sustainable energy will rise to 42 million, you know, thereabouts in 2050. So it is our concern, and I think it should be the concern of all of us, that in this growth of employment that is generated, women can share equally with men, and that the most diverse talent pool actually is accessed. Now, there's lots of evidence that gender equality is a good thing, right? It starts out, of course, with the fact that the enjoyment of women's human rights is part and parcel of the enjoyment of human rights in general. So women have the right to have access to employment on equal terms with men, and that right should not be denied to them. But we also have all kinds of studies and statistics and analytical data that suggest that the participation of women is very good for the economy, for the bottom line of companies, for the development of national economies and countries in general. There is a calculation which is quite funny by McKinsey. You know, they calculated that if all countries were to reach the gender equality standard of the best performers, then 28 trillion US dollars would actually be added to the global economy if every country were just to join the level of gender equality of the best performer in that country's regional group. It would still be 12 trillion US dollars per annum that would be added to the global to the economy. It has been demonstrated that companies with diverse leadership have better results. You have a list of all the findings that different studies have picked out on the slide, so I don't need to go through all of them. There is lots of studies that women have very good leadership skills. Often the leadership style of women may be different than that of men, but that is exactly what is needed in a complex societal transformation as the energy transition is, that we have a diversity of styles of leadership and of life experiences and skills that come into play. So why are we not making better progress on increasing the gender equality? I mean, this is a general question that we need to ask ourselves. Just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Women's Conference, the fourth international conference on women held in Beijing in 1995. Now, as it happens, I was present at that conference in Beijing. I actually chaired one of the negotiating committees in the preparatory process and at Beijing. And I remember the enthusiasm of that conference. I remember what we wrote into the Beijing Platform for Action. And I also know, how much of it has not been implemented in the 25 years since. So the issue of giving full enjoyment to women of their human rights and is not an issue limited to energy. It's a wider issue, and we can use the energy transitions also to advance more equity and more equality in the societies that we create as a result of the energy transitions. So there are a number of barriers for women in the renewable energy sector, and many of these barriers are similar than they exist in other male-dominated sectors of the economy. Perceptions of gender roles, cultural and social norms, prevailing hiring practices, often a lack of STEM background, also self-perception of women, limited mobility sometimes, and lack of awareness of opportunities, no gender targets, no supportive workplace policies. What can be done to make the sector more inclusive? I think one interesting element about sustainable energy is that it's a relatively new sector. It's also a sector that needs a lot of different skills, not just skills in technology, but also social skills, communication skills, teaching skills. There's a lot of capacity building to be done, etc. So sustainable energy can be a sector that actually appeals to lots of persons with very different backgrounds. There is clearly a need to reform the labor market and the workplace. There's also a need to improve data collection and analysis because, as I said, the statistics that we have are quite diverse. The methodologies are not really comparable. The data are not really comparable. There's clearly a need to invest in the next generation. And we also strongly feel that the coalitions of willing, and the willing obviously include women and men, need to be supported so that we can make progress here. Data collection and analysis, I mentioned, this is one of the elements where specialized organizations can pay a bit more attention to the need for gender disaggregated data, and governments obviously have to do their role as well. Corporations could do much more to incorporate into their corporate social responsibility commitments and reports better gender disaggregated data, so that progress against targets that hopefully will be set can actually be monitored. Now, coming to the situation that we are all facing now after the corona, or in the corona crisis, or after the corona crisis, depending how we see it, it is very clear that COVID-19, the pandemic, the lockdowns, had a very severe impact on women. Of course, it also had a very severe impact on men, but in many ways the impact on women and men was different. And because of the pre-existing gender roles and stereotypes, in many ways the impact was very, very severe on women in many ways. We know, for example, that the numbers of gender-based violence went up, spiraling as a result of the lockdowns and the close proximity of families and women and the men that exercise violence against them. Because of the tension, the anxiety that was heightened by the crisis. And all of these issues play together to produce this phenomenon. We also know that women were and are very much at the forefront since they have very significant roles in the health sector everywhere. Women have a major role in the caring of families, and the lockdown increased the work burden significantly for them. The closing down of schools everywhere, etc., are just examples to point out. So, as economies and countries are now trying to build back after the corona crisis and give impetus, economic stimulus packages into their respective countries, we at the Global Women's Network feel that it is very important to give due attention to women in this building back better after COVID-19. And I had the pleasure of working together with major women's organizations in the area on writing an op-ed piece around this issue. These are 4 of the main recommendations that we came up together in the context of empowering women and including women's concerns and women's rights into the Building Back Better programs that so many countries now put together. Clearly, women and men should get equal opportunities to participate in and support the clean energy economy as entrepreneurs and as employees, and they should get equal funding and investment for their businesses. Our second recommendation was that the energy sector must mitigate gender-based vulnerabilities that have worsened with the pandemic in healthcare, gender-based violence, and the digital economy. Women also critically need better energy access and suitable appliances to support their roles in the care economy. And clean cooking is of special importance here. Finally, women need to have a place at the table when strategies about energy transitions and post-recovery strategies are planned and decided on. The Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition did a study, which is available on our website, Women for Sustainable Energy, Strategies to Foster Women's Talents for Transformational Change. And this study does two things. It looks at the obstacles women face in sustainable energy, but then mainly it looks at strategies that are already in existence, that stakeholders across the gamut in sustainable energy are already using. Governments, corporations, universities, networks, industry associations, etc., are already using as we speak to promote women in sustainable energy, to promote the inclusion on an equal footing of women in sustainable energy. So it presents a wealth of good practices that can be emulated by other actors. And it's, as I said, it's available on our website, which is shown also on the slide. Let me conclude by inviting you to join our network of women energy professionals from around the world. As I said, we have already more than 1,300 plus members from more than 100 countries. And what you can find is empowerment, visibility, and connectivity. And I would like to conclude by thanking you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.